All right, I'm going to start recording again. Okay, so this was a script that we wrote for the first part of today's course and today's class. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to start off writing the code that we needed. That's not the right window. I'm going to start off writing the code that we needed for last week's. I think that's right here. Last week's class, because we actually didn't start off doing that last week. So that was right here. So this second example, the second one right here, create a simple script that calculates how many people live in each watershed. So we're gonna start off writing that script and talk about how we'll finish it, or how you'll finish it, independent of this, and then we'll attach it to a script as the final definition there.
So this is you're about to show us last week's second homework problem.
Yes, last week's second problem, if you remember, we didn't quite get there, right? We didn't even demonstrate any of it. Now we did talk about how to run a tool in ArcGIS, but now we're going to write it with this new information in mind. So let's write the tool so that we know what the inputs and what the outputs are, and run it like that. Now, Nick, did you ever, when you're running it, did you ever does it show up in IDLE or only in Notepad?
What do you mean? What was the first part of that question?
Basically, you've gotten to here, right? You have the tool executing right here.
Yeah. So if I run it right now, it gives me a second. I just did the 1 for the first number and 0 for the second, and it's failed, and it said sorry, it failed. Anything plus 0 is the same number.
Okay, so in your example, do you have gp.add warning or add error?
Add warning.
But you still
got like
do you still have this uncommented out?
I actually did not uncomment that. I don't believe.
That's why it's saying it's failed. That's why it's saying it's failed. But my question here is actually, when you right click and say edit, what shows up? This is something.
I think I have everything you have.
Okay. Does it say up here 3.6 point something? It might not be 8, but right here.
No.
What does it say?
I'm in Notepad though.
Oh, okay. So when you say edit, it doesn't open up an IDLE window.
Correct.
Okay. So that
it just opens up like Notepad.
It opens up Notepad. So yeah, this is something that they added a little bit later. So when I come down, it opens up here, right? IDLE opens up here, Benjamin. Like, I don't know if are you doing this along with it or no?
Well, I'm doing it off of mine.
When you hit edit, does IDLE show up? Does it say 3.6.8 here?
See, on mine it says 2.7.16.
Okay, but it says something.
Yeah.
So it is IDLE. So anyway, my point here is that I don't think that the version of ArcGIS Pro that you all have running on your system opens up this IDLE, but I can update all the computers. So next week when I'm down there, I can do that. So I will probably have to get down there pretty early, Benjamin.
Can we do everything we're about to do in the lab in the Jupyter notebook? Do we?
Kind of. Like, you can't attach a Jupyter notebook to a You can't attach a Jupyter notebook to ArcGIS, but you can get close. In fact, we could follow that workflow. Like, so is there anybody that actually wrote a Jupyter notebook that started last week's code? Okay, I got one person up here that's raising their hand.
I think all of us finished the first part down here. We were just on the second. So we did 4-1, I guess it was.
Right.
Yeah,
Did anybody start 4.2?
Oh, no.
Okay. So you started 4.2,
Yeah.
Benjamin? Did you do it in a Jupyter notebook or?
Well, yes and no. How I did it was, since I'm in the other class, I used what I knew as model builder to build my model, extract that information, and then kind of move it around to make my thing.
Okay. And that is a good thing. I do want to show that. I said I wanted to show that later.
Because the reason why I asked about Notebook is because I kind of got mixed up doing all this other stuff today, and I'm really confident in Jupyter
Right.
Notebook than I am
Yeah.
this other way.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll do it in Jupyter Notebook for now, and then I'll show you how to. Because I actually think the best workflow is to get it working first, and so whether that's in Jupyter Notebook or whatever, that's the best thing to do. Once you write it in Jupyter Notebook, you can actually export from Jupyter Notebook into a regular Python script. You guys actually discovered that on your own by accident before, right? We covered that, but we'll cover it again. My back is really hurts. So you don't happen to have any like ibuprofen or Advil or anything like that?
Any other day, I would.
You'd have it.
However, I can acquire some.
No, it's fine.
I know what's on that, and it's like, that's like me. 3 minutes to get it.
No, don't worry about it. Okay, so I'm going to open up Jupyter Notebooks, and we're going to write this script, or we're going to write most of it in Jupyter Notebooks. And so I need to go to Courses, SPA. I'm going to save it in the folder we've been working on. That's this folder. So I'm going to create a new Jupyter Notebook. Doesn't really matter where you put this because it's going to end up you're going to end up putting it. You're going to end up saving this out. Remember, you can go File, Save As. No, not Save As. Where was that? There was an export, right?
Right. It's under File, Download As.
Download As, that's it. Okay, so first of all, let's change this to Braver George. This will be, last week's was 4, right? Yeah, because we're on 5 today. 4.2, and I'm going to save that. So now this is the way. The reason that we did this actually, as this was last week's assignment, and then this week's assignment is to attach it to a notebook, is because this is the best workflow to actually write it, get it working the way you want it to work, and the only thing you need to consider is where your variables are going to be initialized, and then you create a Python script of it, and you can attach that up into ArcGIS Pro as a toolbox. So we know we're going to have to import ArcPy. So we need to do that. And then we need to think about what inputs are we going to allow the user to specify. Okay. And then we need to write our code logic, and then results. I'm just going to put that for now. Okay. All right. So what inputs are we going to allow? Let's go read the problem one more time. So a simple script that calculates how many people live in each watershed. So the watershed is going to be one of the inputs. We're going to allow the user to specify the watershed layer. Since the boundaries and the census boundaries don't match up, you'll use GIS to break apart overlay and assign people to each watershed based on a percentage of the area of a particular tract has in each watershed. Okay. Blah, blah, blah. All right. So let's look at week 6's assignment. No, not week 6, week 5. Week 5's assignment is that we're going to simply take the assignment from last week and turn it into a script tool within the toolbox. I'll be a little bit more specific. Basically, we need to allow the user to specify the input polygons, the watersheds and the census boundaries. So the user is going to specify the watersheds and the census boundaries, and they're going to get back the summarized watersheds that have a population associated with them. Okay. All right. And remember last week we talked about the steps that you need to do. We need to do an overlay, and then a dissolve, right? Is that what I said last week?
That sounds right.
Yeah.
Unions, overlay, and do a technical,
Yeah.
I may have more than I needed, but.
All right. All right. So,
Dr. Ray,
yeah.
you dissolving all the people that's around each one of those watersheds, so everything in around that watershed will be what you're looking for.
Right. You dissolve on watershed, and you sum the population after the overlay. So what we need to do is we need to have watersheds and census. So we have those two layers. All right. Now, how do we reference those things? Remember from last week? Like, how do we get the watersheds layer? What's the syntax to assign it so that now we could say I have a layer that represents watersheds.
No, you gotta find the like how you get there, like where it's saved.
Right, exactly. We need the path to watersheds and the path to census. And I have that saved in a place. So I'm gonna add that into our catalog. I'm gonna add that into to my databases from last week. So what I can do is say add. Wait, was it? I forgot what kind of data it was. Was it shapefiles or was it a geodatabase? It's a geodatabase, right? I put it in ctemp. I know that. Yep, ctemp lab data. So in ArcGIS Pro, now this isn't necessary for the script, but I just want to make sure that it's there. I go add database, and I say ctemp lab data. Now I've got it. So I'm talking about these two data sets, C-tracts and watersheds. I could add them to the map. It's fine because I'm not going to actually edit any of those data sets. I'm going to make. They were included in they're not shapefiles. They're filed. It's a file geodatabase.
Okay. All right.
You know where to get them, or you want me to show you where to get them? Okay. So I've got the data was downloaded from last week. So now I have both of them. I'm going to make these actually clear. No color. Make the outline like pink. outline width. All right. That looks a little bit better. So I want to know how many people live within each of those watersheds. And so the steps that I'm going to have you guys follow, although it's probably a bit of a simplification, is to just do an overlay and then a dissolve. Now, I think I said a union and then a dissolve, which is fine. So yeah, I'm going to use a union and then a dissolve. So where are they on disk? Well, I can actually just properties these and look at the source, and this is the source. So I can go back into my Jupyter notebook and put something like that. What's the name of the watersheds? So that's the path to watersheds. You see that path there?
Right.
I gotta make that bigger, right? That's a little bit better. How's that? Is that better?
Yes.
Does that look a little bit better that size?
Yes.
Yeah, I just copied it into. Mm-hmm.
And they did this connection.
I got it.
So, yeah, sorry, I was just pausing this. I guess there's a question on how to get to the data.
Yeah, someone wanted to know what that R means.
Yeah, so the R if you put the R before a string, it's telling it to ignore any special characters in that string. So normally the slash is a special character.
Right.
So it's telling it to ignore that and just take it for what's there.
Refresh. You said it in the folder.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Did it show up? Did you get your data in Arc Pro?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Okay,
Yeah,
so
just so excited.
okay, so so now we have those two values set up. So when we actually get this into a Python script, we'll be able to take these two parameters and just change this to arcpy.get parameter from text, and it'll be asking for that path. You'll see that when we get to that point. Okay. All right, so here we're going to write the code logic. So I'm going to put in some further comments and say, overlay watersheds and census data. And then dissolve. Dissolve output. Using okay. Then finally we got the results. Okay, so let's overlay the two data sets. So I think that either one, a union or an intersect, would be acceptable, but I think an intersect actually makes more sense. And in fact, I know that this isn't my other class, but I think that it actually makes the most sense to do what's called an identity. Let's look at that one real quick, because I think it makes more sense. Although this isn't the way I taught it in the past, but identity. It's an overlay technique. So why don't you guys read that for a few seconds and kind of summarize what it does. But some of you are in the other class, so you might understand what it does. But it's an overlay technique, so it does, in practice, it does the same thing as intersect and union to the attribute data, but it does something different to the polygons. And what is that?
So are you saying everything outside of those two, everything is outside the intersection of those two different items would not show up, just the output on the show, the part of the circle that's one top of another?
Right, that would be an intersect. So identity actually only returns polygons that exist in the input layer. So they have to exist in the input layer for them to exist in the output layer. See what I'm saying? So in other words, if we make watersheds the input layer, then we're going to get a layer that looks just like watersheds out, but it's going to be cut out everywhere where we have census data. Does that make sense?
So census data would be the identity feature. Well, census data would be the part that's added onto the
right.
watershed.
Census data would be the identity feature. The input would be the watersheds. Exactly. And so what we'll get out the same watersheds, but now they'll have more features cut into them. Does that make sense?
Correct.
Yep. So I kind of like that. I like it better than using union or overlay.
Right.
But the power of scripting actually, I mean, one of the things that you could do is you could actually tell the user, ask the user which one they wanted to do. So you could say, you want to do this one or this one or this one? You could make that a parameter. You could say, if the user entered, text that said identity, do an identity. If they entered intersect, do an intersect. Right? I can show that in a second. But so first of all, once we've identified the tool we want to run, then we can look down here, and there's always a Python script example using it. So here is the Python script example of doing an identity. So it needs the input layer, the identity layer, and then the output. So let's just copy this over into our Jupyter notebook. There we go. It says wells and counties. We can change this to watersheds and census. Then we need to specify where it's going to go on disk. So for now, what I'm going to do is, because I want the user to be able to specify this, I'm going to come up here and type output and say what I want to call it. I want to call it, I want to call it,
Is that the people count? Yeah, we try to get the count of the people.
actually, you're right. So there is another step we need to do. This actually brings up a good point that I wanted to bring up anyway. So this is actually an intermediate step. I'm going to call this enter one, int1. Just it stands for intermediate. And I'm going to use a another location on that you can save things to. And this only works for data sets that you know aren't going to be huge. By huge, I mean they can't be more than a couple gigabytes. Okay, and really you want them to be under 500 megabytes to do this. Okay, it's called in_memory. What that means is that it's not going to store it anywhere on disk. It's going to do the overlay and it's going to keep it in the computer's brain. Everything has to be in the computer's brain anyway for a little while when it's actually happening. So in memory lets you store it in the computer's brain. It's a special thing in Python scripting. If we actually Google it, in memory arcpy. Yeah, it stores it in the RAM.
Is that temporary memory?
Yes, as soon as the script stops running, then it gets rid of it. Okay. Oh, so is it just called memory now? Because this just says memory.
It said in underscore memory in that up there.
Yeah, it does say that. But in these code samples, it just says memory. Anyway, I'm going to use in_memory. This memory stuff is new. Memory is a new memory-based workspace developed for ArcGIS Pro, which currently supports output feature classes and tables. I don't know what the difference between memory and in-memory is yet. I have to read this help. See how it says memory? In-memory is the legacy memory-based, which supports output feature class, tables, and rasters. Okay, so one difference is that in-memory supports feature class tables and rasters, and memory only supports feature classes and tables. However, I don't know if, because this makes it sound like in-memory might not even be supported for ArcGIS Pro. But we'll find.
That's what it looks like. They're transitioning from in-memory to memory.
Yeah. There's one version.
Now, for us, are we using a raster? No. So we're not using raster, so we could just leave this as memory. And it should work just fine because it sounds like memory is where they're going, which currently doesn't support rasters. All right. So I'm going to delete the IN. I don't know if it would work or not. What's that?
It's just sometimes that change between the arc map and ArcGIS. Like,
Yep. You still have to give it a name. So we're just going to call this let's call it int1 again. All right. So now I can go int1. The disadvantage to using the in-memory workspace is there's no way to look at it. It's not tangible. It's only in the RAM. You can keep using it, but there's no way to get to it. Okay? And that actually can be a pretty big disadvantage in debugging, because for the next step, we want to be able to dissolve based on it, right? And we want to be able to look at what the field names are to do the dissolve and that sort of thing, right? So we'll just have to guess. Well, not guess. We can figure out what the field names are, because what are the field names going to be if we do any type of overlay?
Well, we want the field names to have population in there, in the accounts.
Right, but what's the population field name? What is it? Do we know what it is?
Like P001, 00001, something like that.
Yeah, but that's because we looked in there, right?
I know I'm dealing with census data for my
Oh, yeah.
usage, so I'm kind of
Exactly.
familiar with it.
So you're familiar with it. But yeah, we need to dissolve based on,
Attribute table.
we need to dissolve based on the Huck_8 field, and we need to summarize based on the P0010001, like, yeah. So, but my point is, even though we can't see the result of this identity operation, we know for a fact that the fields will be a combination of all these fields. It'll have all of these fields, and it will have all of these fields. Okay. It'll have those fields. So we know that we need to dissolve based on Huck8. Right.
So the dissolved population, the only thing you need to do is just add up what's in the dissolved, the output of the dissolved, which is in the attribute table, which will be the population. All the population inside of that dissolved, overlay will be the number you're looking for, right?
Right. So we're just going to do, I mean, we could go ahead and run this. So I'm gonna put watersheds here, C-tracks here. This is what our script's gonna do already. It's gonna run, and we're gonna get this as a result. And I'm gonna change the symbol here. Oops. Change the symbol. Make that yellow with gray. Come on. Okay, so there's the result. See how it's the same boundary as watersheds, but it has the census tracts burned into it. So yeah, now what we need to do is, if we look at the attribute table, we need to dissolve on Huck8. So what we need to do is run dissolve. We need to dissolve. Yeah.
The symbology is a little hard for us to see. The
Change
actual,
that color.
The yellow and gray is that color for us, yeah. I think we need to recalibrate that project. Something.
Yeah, you can see.
It's been washing.
the outline color's fine. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Thank you.
All right, so if we dissolve, we're going to take this, we're going to dissolve based on the Huck8, but we're going to summarize based on the population sum, and we'll run that. And so now the outputs will have that data, and it'll tell us how many people live in each one of those. We could even symbolize based on that.
Or the Huck8's the watersheds.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I got you.
So this is a Coropath map of the watershed population. You can see, of course, the watershed that's down on the coast is the highest, has the highest amount of people. All right. Okay, so we need to run the dissolve, and that'll be right here. Oh, so my workflow is often to just ArcPy, ArcGIS Pro. Oftentimes I do that so that I get the Pro help, and then say dissolve. So I know I'm going to run dissolve. It shows up as the first thing. I can just go down here and copy the example over. So it's asking for an input. What's the input going to be for the dissolve?
Watersheds.
Well,
No,
Wait.
the new overlay layer, the identity
Oh,
layer.
okay, yeah.
and it does have watersheds in it. Okay, and then this is going to be the output. So I actually do need to save that somewhere on disk. Output is going to be I don't know what we're going to call it. I'm just going to call it watersheds with pop or something like that. And then call this output. Now this is the part where I might need to go back to the help to find out what these values represent. So I've got land use, tax code in a list. What do these represent? Well, if I go back to the help, I can see what the 1, 2, 3, third parameter is. That is the dissolve field. So it's either a field or a list of fields on which to aggregate. Do you remember what field we were going to use?
Oh, it's
Yes, the Huck 8. No, just the Huck 8. We're going to use the Huck 8 to dissolve on. So I forgot what that's called. It's called Huck _8. So we could just write this Huck _8 like that. But according to this, we don't need to have it in a list, but we could give it to it in a list.
Don't you have to use underscore and spaces every time you're using art? Make space, you have to use an underscore
Well, the reason why this is Huck _8 is because
for the name, for the field.
this is Huck _8. Do you see that?
Yeah, I understand.
Oh, okay. But you're saying, yes, field names cannot have spaces in them. But I didn't make these fields up. But yes, in field names can't have spaces in them at all. Yeah. Sorry. Were you going to ask a question? I didn't mean to cut you off. All right. And then finally, what's the next one? That's dissolve field. The next one is the statistics field. Now this one is kind of interesting because it's any numeric field containing attributes to use, and then you can enter the specific statistic. So it has to look like this, where it's a list of field statistic type lists.
Which would be the population.
Right, it'll be the population. So to make it look something like this, we'd have to go like this, and then say, what's the name of the field? It's P. Come on.
yeah, P00100001.
Okay. P0010001. And then say, let me look and see over here, comma, then statistic type. So then we go, comma, sum, right? But we actually need to have a list, and then it's a list of two things inside of a list.
Right.
So it needs to look exactly like this for it to work. And I'm getting that from the help. Yeah, sorry.
Is you assigning each line according to the watershed population, whatever it is. So you're going straight down and that's how it's going to be?
Yeah, so this was the the overlay layer right here. And so we're summarizing P00010001 by sum. Yeah. There's no other examples, but we could also, well, we could go like this if we wanted to. Comma. What's another one of the statistics? Mean. So what would this do if I did this? How would that change it?
You did two different fields?
Yes.
One sum, one mean?
Yep. So here's the output table right here. See how I got this one that's called sum? If I ran this, which I'll go ahead and run this, I'm going to get another field called mean underscore P00001. So I run that, and it's running.
So you're running it in
I'm running it in Jupyter Notebooks, yep. Yeah, I always want to run it, whether I run it in IDLE or Jupyter Notebooks. I want to make sure it works before I convert it into a Python script. So it does work. In fact, I can go look at it now under catalog. I can see that it's there. Refresh. Yep, there it is. Drag it onto the map. And if I open it up the attribute table, you'll see that I do have the mean and the sum. The sum of P001 and the mean. Now, I don't really need the mean to answer the question, but it's there. So my
Can I see your notebook for just a
Yeah,
second?
yeah.
Can you go back to the Jupyter Notebook after an error?
The other thing about it is you didn't print the output of what you told it. It just did the operation. What if you would have told it to print the operation?
To print what operation?
Okay, the Jupyter Notebook
You
is
scroll right.
ArcGIS is this program. If this ArcGIS then would print it out, print out the value. It wouldn't print out the value now, right? Not in Jupyter. It's being ArcGIS, correct?
What do you mean by print out the value?
Well, you wrote the program here, right? But it don't know where the numbers is because the numbers are inside of ArcGIS, correct?
Oh, you're asking, what if I wanted to print out to the screen the watershed populations, right?
Right.
Yes, and we'll get to that in this course. But yeah, right now, we haven't covered a method for doing that.
Can I bring out the
Right.
memory?
We only write the script to go inside of ArcGIS Python, the program itself.
Hey, I wonder, I'm going to try to run this again in underscore. I wonder if your data set, if your computers don't, because I had never heard of memory before. So I just ran that again using in underscore memory. And it seems to work. Do you want me to move over or anything? What's the error that you're all getting?
Mine had trouble with the memory. It said,
Mine did too at first until I put in memory. And it was,
Yeah.
that part did. Now it's messed
My
up.
guess is that that memory is like brand new. Like, so ArcGIS Pro changes more often than ArcGIS did. So my guess is memory is a brand new thing because I've been using it in memory just fine in my development. But it may not be, the version of ArcGIS Pro that's installed on those computers down there is older than the ones up here. I need to update it. I was going to do it last time when I visited, but I didn't. So
how did you get it into Arc?
how did I get what into Arc?
The output.
I had to manually add it. So this is where I saved it on disk. And so I just found it and dragged it on. And the reason why I renamed it Popper is because if I didn't, if I try to run this again, I'm going to get an error because It's trying to overwrite it, but it already exists. So if you get an error after running it successfully, it's probably an overwrite issue.
Okay, so I can change. Memory like in ING2 or something. Like,
Huh.
no one.
You run the population zone.
Maybe it's a pops.
Okay, so now it's not even letting me overwrite the in memory.
Well, I had that issue whenever I was just using memory, and then whenever I went to in memory, I just got the result that you got.
Yeah. So yeah, with in memory, it's easy. You just like change this to some other value, you know.
I had to do ING2 or ING1. Well, I'm trying to resave. I want to have a pops. Let's see.
So some of you gotten it to run successfully?
Yeah, I had to I had to change my ING to ING2, just like you just did.
Okay, yeah. So that just means that if it doesn't complete the script, it like leaves those in memory things there until you run the script again. It's kind of hard to. Yeah, go ahead. All right.
I know, right? Yeah, it's working our pro now. We've been practicing so much on it, my other part.
Okay.
Oh, it's frustrating. First one.
Ah, finally got to sneeze. Okay. All right. So did most everybody get it to work to run?
Yes.
Okay. So now what we're going to do, since this works, is we're going to hook this up into. I'm gonna modify the assignment slightly so that because we're basically gonna do it all, right? I'm gonna modify the assignment slightly so that you're gonna have to let the user specify some additional information. Okay? We're gonna truly generalize it. I'm also gonna delete this because I only want the sum. That's the only one that I have to specify. Okay. All right. So let's hook this up so that it runs inside of ArcGIS. Does that say INT2 already exists? There we go. Okay, so let's hook this up so that it runs inside of ArcGIS Pro. To do that, we'll need to export it. We'll need to go to File, and we'll need to say download as py, python.py. This one right here. Okay. And then I can save that. I'm going to save it. Well, I just saved it. So I'm going to see where I put it. I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it in C, users, George, courses. I'm going to put it where I can get to it. I know where it is. 5. So now I have it right there. Okay. I can open this up in Notepad or in IDLE, which you guys don't have on your machines, I guess. So here it is in Notepad. You can see that it's there. Notepad puts the line numbers next to it. That's not actually in the file, but they put the lines by it. ArcGIS also put these other things there. Those don't really matter for what we're doing. Like it doesn't really matter. So I'm just going to delete them. You can do the same thing and delete this part. Then I'll resave that. Let me do that. Let me just show that in Arc Notepad. So I could go File, Open, and I could open this in, I have to say all files in Notepad, but then I could open that file right there. Make sure you're opening the .py file. Make this a little bit bigger. There you go. See how that looks the same? So now we need to modify this a little bit to accept the parameters, the get parameters of text and the set parameters of text, so that we can make it into a ArcGIS tool. Okay. All right, so we've already imported ArcPy, so we don't need to change that. Okay, but we do need to change these parts. And what I like to do, again, is I like to just copy all this information down here so that I can leave this in for testing in case I have to go back and test something else. And then I just basically sub out the new information here. And really, this doesn't need to change at all. So that's going to be the same. See that? And then I'm going to sub out something here too. So get rid of that. So now I'm going to say set up ArcGIS or ArcPy dot.
Hey, Dr. Rick,
Yeah.
my notepad, I can't find my files. Like I saved it as a .py and everything, but I can't. It won't.
Right. So.
The little drop down thingy, yeah.
Wait, in Jupyter? Okay, no, I see. Never mind.
So by default, Notepad is only looking for .txt.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. All right. So do I still have my? Yeah, I got this open. I love copying code rather than. Okay. So I'm just going to go over here, and this will be number 1. This will be number 2. This will be number 3. Oh, remember it's 0 based. 0, 1, and 2. Okay.
There's space.
All right.
You're saying-
What's that? Sorry.
I was just talking out loud. Just give me 3 more seconds and I'll be caught up.
We actually don't need this one, right? Because the output is going to go down here. Well, no, we do need to do that. Yep. But we do need to go like this. Actually, we don't need to do that. You only need to set the parameters text. But actually, we don't need to do that. We don't need to set the parameters text unless it's derived. So we can write no need to set because it is not derived. This is going to be the result. Right? So that's really all we need to do. Now it should work, but we need to create the tool that will do that. That will run this. All right? So that's in here. And we go to the week 5 example.tbx. And we're going to create a new script. and I can choose the one that we just did, which is under C, users, George, courses. I don't know where's courses.
Hey, Dr. River, whenever you get a chance, can you go back to the notepad and leave
Yes,
it on there for just a second? I think
I will
mine's
leave it.
slightly different than yours.
I will do that just a second. There we go. Okay. I'll leave this here for a second. Is that good? Hmm. Okay. Oh, that's not. So is that good? Did you get that copied down, or you want me to leave that up for a few more seconds?
So
Okay.
you have two different outputs equals? It's not gonna, okay, that's the location, the first one.
Well, this value will get assigned, but then it'll be overwritten right here.
Oh, okay.
Like I could delete all these, but I'm gonna leave them in
yeah,
there.
the first one.
Yeah. Sorry, was that a question, Elvis?
No, sir. No, I said don't delay them up, because I'm looking at this later.
What's that?
I said, I'm gonna be looking at what you're doing later, so I'm just looking at what you got.
Yep. Okay. So, oh, go
That's
ahead.
not going to mess it up when it runs, or is it just gonna override all that old stuff?
Yep. So one of the features of actually most programming language, but Python's not an exception here. So the value of output will just change, and it'll now be this. So it'll get assigned to this temporarily, but then it'll be assigned to this before it gets down into any of the code. Same with census. They'll get reassigned this value.
So even though it's in there, because none of them are tabs or nothing like that, it just, I guess, ignores that top piece and creates and moves off of that second set.
Well, it doesn't ignore it, but it's the same as if we did this. What does A equal now? If I ran this, what would happen? 7. It no longer equals 5. It's the same thing. Census was equal to this, and then we said, oh, just kidding, census is equal to that.
Okay. So you just passing on those values, they reassign them back to the second set of
Yep.
They be reassigned from the
We're just reassigning it. So the user's then allowed to specify it. So I'm gonna go into ArcGIS Pro, and I created a new script. And instead of just calling this script 1, I'm actually going to call this I'll call it find pop Something like that. I'll find population. Okay. All right, and then my parameters. How many parameters do I need?
So you got two, you got a census, wait, you got watersheds. Oh,
Yep.
what, the watersheds, the census tract.
And then you'll need the identity layer once it's made.
Well, I'm not going to expose that to the user. I'm just going to. I don't care whether the user knows what that one is or not. So that's just going to be in memory. So really,
Okay, I didn't know if you had to put that in like as a derived parameter.
no, not unless you want to. Like if you wanted to report to the user, this is where I put it, then you could. But if you don't, then you don't have to. So I'm going to say, I'm not going to call these watersheds and census. I'm going to call these overlay polygons.
Okay.
And I'm going to call this one population polygons. Maybe I'll even put a space in between there. Okay. And then what data type do I need to make those? String, by the way, string will work, but then the user would have to type in the whole path. They wouldn't get any help. You'd have to type in C:/ wherever it was on disk. That'd be a pain. And so remember, everything's really passed by string, but we want the user to get a friendly experience. And in that way, if we say feature class, the user will be prompted to enter the location of that file on disk. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm going to tell you that the difference between feature class and feature layer is that feature layer will allow them to specify the location on disk, but it'll also let them choose from any open layer. So I actually think that's kind of a cool thing to do. So I'm going to change that to feature layer. Just to kind of show you what I mean here, I'll make this one feature class. And I'll say OK, and I'll save that. Now if I run find population, look how with overlay polygons, I have the ability to choose one that's added to my map already. So I can choose watersheds. But with population polygons, I can't choose anything. I have to actually find it on disk. You see the difference between those two? That's really the only difference. So go back to catalog, properties. So if you say feature layer, you're going to get the layer. Oh, there's one more difference. If you say feature layer, it will preserve the selection and only operate on the selection. Does that make sense? So like, if somebody selected just a few polygons and they ran your tool, it would only run on those selected few polygons. Does that make sense? So anyway, I usually like to allow feature layer unless there's a good reason not to let them choose the ones on the map. I say feature layer. Because they're exactly the same, except for you can choose ones that are on the map. The only disadvantage is that if there's a selection you don't know about, you can pull your hair out thinking, why isn't this working? Oh, it's because that was selected. Or that one little feature was selected. All right, so the last one here, this one does have to be feature class because you can't specify a layer because a layer is a feature class that's been loaded into ArcMap. And you can't load it into ArcMap if it doesn't even exist yet. So that has to be feature class, and we're going to call this output data. And we're going to save that as feature class. We're going to say that this is a output. Now we're going to say OK. So now we have find population, and let's see if it works. We'll choose the watersheds. We'll choose the sea tracts. And by default, it's going to name it this. See where it's going to put it? It's going to put it in a different location, so that'll be a good test for us. It's going to put it in, by default, it's going to put it into the directory that we're working in our GIS Pro. We run it, and there's the result. We can open it up, and it has that sum population. So it has.
Is there a way to make it add to your map automatically?
It did add to my map automatically.
Oh, mine didn't.
Did you? It didn't add
I
it
mean,
to.
I'm sure it exists and I can just drag it over.
I think I have the slowest computer in the lab.
This has to be an output for it to go for it to do that automatically.
It automatically create ones in the catalog, and it goes over into the content table too. They create both, correct?
No, it was.
Yeah.
It did. Yeah.
So it didn't add automatically. Did it create it? Can you add it manually, and does it look right?
Oh, I'm trying to find it. I've been having issues with my data going to other places.
Well, you might have to refresh it a bit too.
Well, I have been. It's just, I don't know why I'm having so many issues saving stuff and then refinding it.
Yeah.
Pain in the tush.
We create data. You get it?
Yeah, the black one. See, it ran.
Open up your,
It ran. So that's what it looked like.
Very model, very script.
So,
In your, so go back up where you're gonna run it and just see where it's.
yes,
Put it to,
exactly. Highlight over this and see where I put it. That.
yeah. So see user, are you connected to that?
Yeah, that's the one I'm working on.
Yes.
I gotta write it down here too.
What does your output here say right here?
It's bringing it to her GDB, her geodatabase, but it's not in the geodatabase.
My output says that. Give parameters as text.
2. Did anybody else's work correctly? Is it just those computers in general?
My work fine.
I'm on the newest computer in here.
So it's not the computers in general. Hey, if you wanna send it to me, I can try to debug it. Of course.
You want me to send you my notebook? Like this one?
No, just the script that you're trying to run, the .py file.
Yeah, because he erased 2 and I just erased 3. Yeah. I should just give it. I don't know why I have stuff doesn't ever want to show up. Makes no damn sense. Yeah. And it didn't even put it on my. It ran. Got a little green check mark.
Did you send it to me?
Do you want me to, so you actually want me to send you my script from ArcMap?
The Python script that it's executing when it runs. So like if you go right here and you say properties, you go to general, I want you to send me whatever's at that path.
Okay, yeah, so the actual notebook then. Like the, nope, yeah.
Well, it shouldn't be a Python notebook. It should just be.
Well, yeah, it's a .py, but it's from like the notebook
Yes.
app, that's what I was saying.
All right.
It's sending your way.
All right. So I'm not sure. I mean, if it really is running this, it you haven't changed anything.
Does the int, where it says int1 is equal to in memory slash int3, is that supposed to be int3 when it's int1 down in the next line as well?
Well, this is corresponding to this. It doesn't really matter that this is in 3. So anyway, Ashley, you see, oops, where did I put it? Yeah, there. Too late, gotta go around again. All right, so you see this part right here, these get parameter as text. I'm sure you typed that in somewhere, right?
Oh, I might not.
And remember, after you save it, after you save it,
She might not have saved it, like after she edited her text.
right? After you save it, you have to close this and reopen it for it to get the right script.
It keeps giving me a new name.
What does that get parameters as text do there?
So get parameters as text does the exact same thing as sys.argv. It's ready and it's waiting. So when that actually gets sent to the operating system to run, it's a command. It's a command line argument. So it's the third argument. So it's sending in. It's actually sending in this text because that's what it's going to get. So it's getting this information, and watersheds becomes that. What here, another way to do this, look, I could say let me go to this one and say add message. That's it. Um, Like that line got kind of long, but now I run this, say watersheds, census tracts, run that guy. Now I just printed this into the window. Watersheds will be overlaid with C tracts and then dissolved, and the population will be summarized in the output file. C:/users courses SPA week 5 / watersheds find population 1. So that's the path to the output. So this is showing you that watersheds and C tracts were the values in this watersheds and C tracts. Now I could, let's say I changed this so that I actually picked the watersheds file from disk, databases, watersheds, C tracts. So now you see that the thing is the full path. Now if I run this, you'll see that says C temp, lab data, watersheds will be overlaid with C temp, C tracts. So it's the feature classes instead of the feature layers. And then dissolved population will be summarized. I didn't spell that right. In the output file named this. So the get parameters from text is getting the value from here. It's getting this value. That's why that's going into there. Get parameters text 0 gets this value. Get parameters 2 or 1 gets the second one, which is this one. And finally, get parameters as text 3 gets that value, which is right there. Does that answer the question a little bit?
It's still not working right, but I don't know what to do with
It's producing.
Well, now it's producing an error when I do it.
Okay, what's the error say?
Let me run it again and see. It's saying the module arcPy has no attribute get parameter as text.
Okay, so you could send it to me if you want, but my guess is that you either spelled it wrong or Python is case sensitive, so you didn't capitalize it everywhere where it's capitalized.
Okay, let me.
So the G, P, A, and T are all capitalized.
I sure did spell that wrong. Dyslexic ass.
Oh, I mean, I'd spell things wrong all the time. That's why I almost always copy and paste from the help rather than try to type it.
What it is, I typed the first one out and then I copied that one, so that's why all of them were spelled wrong. They're all spelled with A instead of E. Well, let's see. That took a lot of willpower to find out and spell something wrong. That's crazy, because why didn't it run right the first time? If it was spelled wrong.
Yeah,
Hey, there it is.
you be one little mainline code, and I stopped the code.
So did it work?
Yes, it did.
Awesome. Okay. So there's so we actually did everything. So the only thing that the thing that I'm going to change about the lab is that I'm going to make it so that the lab will specify this. So I'll retype the question. Is that I want the user to be able to specify the field names. Okay, and we're going to do part of this together, but not all of it. Okay, if the user specifies the field names, it will make it truly generic. In other words, anybody could have two different polygons, and one polygon layer can represent the larger polygons that you're going to aggregate to. They could be states, they could be they could be counties, they could be voting districts, whatever. And then the other field represents the smaller polygons that represent population. And so if the user can specify any of that information, then it makes it truly general, which is what makes it executing as a tool more makes it more portable, makes it more powerful. Okay, so if I want the user to be able to specify these two things, I need to change two things. I need to change my code, and I need to change my toolbox to support the code. And so I'm going to make you guys change the code, okay? But I'm going to make it so that I'm going to show you how to change it in the in the toolbox. So if I go back to properties, what do I have to change if I want to let the user specify which field they want to use? What do you think I need to change?
You want to select the field?
Yes. So I have two fields, right? I have the aggregation field that's gonna be the dissolve. I can call it the dissolve field, right? Call it the dissolve field, the aggregation field, whatever I want. I think dissolve field might be good. And the dissolve field is always going to be in which data set?
It's going to be,
Which of these two data sets is it always going to be in?
it's going to be in the top one, right?
Right. It's going to be in the overlay polygons. And look, I have the ability to say I want it to be a field. I think field is one of the choices. Field, yep. Okay. And I also want the user to be able to specify the population field. And that's always going to be in the population, this one, right? Population polygons. Okay, I'm going to show you one other thing to be able to finesse this, is that you could write a validation script to do this, but they also cook it into here, so it's kind of cool. This dependency field allows you to say that the field, the dissolve field, has to come from the overlay polygons. And the population field has to come from the population polygons. So now, another thing I want to do is you can actually reorder these, which I think is, I would put the dissolve field right underneath that one and the population field right underneath the population one. Okay. All right, so now when I hit OK and I run this, look how I have the option now. Once I choose the population, the overlay polygons, I can choose a list of which fields I want to summarize on. So I could choose the Huck8 field, and I could choose C-Tracks and choose the population field. Right? Okay. So what we need to do is modify our code to accept that information. So what's going to change in our code? Since I reordered the text, do these numbers need to change? I reordered the fields in ArcGIS Pro. So do these numbers need to change?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I think order that your script is going to run, right?
Yeah, they need, what's that?
They need to be in the same order on the code as they are on the geoprocessing tool.
Exactly. So now these three parameters happen to be 0. This one's still 0. This one's now 2, and this one's now like 4, I think.
Right.
So anyway, but now you have 2 more. You'll need to capture the field names that are appropriate, and you'll need to put those in the right places here and here, right? So think about that, okay? So you need to do that, all right?
So is that order based on the attribute chart? The order based on the attribute chart?
Yes. So the order that they appear here is the order. See, they actually puts it right next to it. So this is going to be get parameters text 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. You see that? So
Do it again. Do it again.
So this is 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Right.
That number right there tells you which parameter it is.
Can you reorder them yourself?
I reordered them, and you could do it too. Yep, you just drag and drop them.
Oh, okay.
So you could keep them in the same order. In my personal opinion, and I think most people would agree with me, but I'm not positive. But in my personal opinion, it's just bad practice to make the output ones above any input ones. Does that make sense? Like the outputs are at the bottom. This is just all the other ArcGIS tools are set up that way. Even the ones that ESRI has written. So I think it's convention to stick with the way ESRI has it. You always put the inputs first and then the outputs. You don't have to. Like your code could say, like if I move the output data up to the very first one, which I'm not going to do, but you could say get parameters text 0 is the output. And it would work, but I think it's better to follow the convention of all the inputs and the output is the last one. Does that make sense?
But, and it's also saying too, it's like this in and out, is something in this or outside of this. So everything that you get from populations is within the overlay. And so, I was looking at it logically like that. I wasn't trying to put something outside of what you're seeing.
Yeah, the reason why I put these next to each other is so that because this one is part of that one and this one's part of that one.
Right.
Right. Yep, that's why I ordered them like that. You don't have to order them like that, but that's the way. Like when you do a join, it says which one's the join table and which one's the join field, which one's which one's the input table, which one's the join field, which one's the input table, and which one's the. Yeah. Anyway, there's two and they're paired. That's what I'm trying to get at. I forgot exactly what they're called off the top of my head. Yeah. Okay. All right, so that should be fairly straightforward. Right now, it's not letting me post this to GitHub. I have to close everything, so it's not saving anything. But as soon as class is over, this will all be uploaded and saved there. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Just one more question. So on your it's your Python file, but whether you have a text on Notepad for the ArcPy dissolve management, would you put another bracket after the HUC8 and then a bracket after the population and the sum? Would that be the order that it goes in? If you modified all the parameters to go in order that you're inputting them into the script?
I'm not exactly sure what you're asking, but to me, it sounds like you're asking, where do I put this new field? Do I put it after HUC8? Is that what you're asking?
Correct.
Okay, so the answer is no, it's instead of HUC8. So you're generalizing so that the user actually specifies HUC8. In other words, here's an intermediate step. Oops. So this would run the way it is, well, assuming that I didn't change the order of the parameters. But this would run the way it is, but HUC8 is always hard-coded. But now you want to be able to specify what this is, because it's not always going to be HUC8. That's what I'm trying to say.
Right.
If this was states, you'd want to choose the state ID or the state name. If this was counties, you'd want to choose the county name. See what I'm getting at? All right, did that answer your question?
Yes, sir, it did.
Okay, great. All right. There's only one more thing I want to do. I'll upload this right after class so that you'll have these things. The last thing I want to do is mention and just show you real quick that if I had my model here, I'm going to close all these guys up. It is possible. Sorry, what? Yeah, so I'm going to come down and visit you next week. And so we're not going to do the test next week. So I know originally I moved everything up. And so I'm going to be there and we'll talk about the test next week.
Okay.
So originally I didn't, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for me to be there on the day of the test when we're not teaching any material.
Yes, sir.
So
I thought the test is going to be on the 15th instead of the 8th.
yes, exactly. So we're going to go back to the way it was originally in the syllabus. And so next week we'll just continue one more week on kind of introducing our GIS concepts, and then we'll talk about the test that week. So the original syllabus is correct, but we're spending one more week on our GIS. That's basically what's going to happen. Okay. Good question. And you're welcome to ask more questions. Sorry, I should have said that at the very beginning of class. But yeah, when I looked over the weeks I was going to be there, I was like, well, this isn't going to work. But anyway, okay. So what I wanted to show is that in my model here, I want to go to Tools and say identity is the one we ended up using. And then we also used dissolve. All right. So I could set up my entire thing that I just wrote in my script here in Model Builder. So what I could do is I can create a variable from the input feature, and I could create another variable from the identity feature. And I can even call those things. Oh, by the way, I have to set them as parameters, and then they'll be the same as being an input parameter. And then I could set another parameter for the identity features, and I can even rename them.
Right above group.
What's that?
It was right above group, rename.
Oh, thank you. Rename. I want to call this one, I called it overlay features. And I called this one population features. I'm just trying to show trying to create the exact same result. And then this is going to go into the dissolve as the input features. And then I could go in here and say create variable from parameter dissolve fields, and make that a input parameter, and then create variable from parameter statistics fields, rename, oops, and I'm going to call this population. What's that?
That's how I go.
Rename. Yeah, that we actually called that dissolve field already. This was called population field.
For population field, you said it was parameter 2.
Yeah. Parameter, and then this is a parameter because I want the user to be able to specify where they're going to put it. And this will just leave it be a intermediate step, so the user can't specify where that is on disk. So I should have this ready to view catalog pane, closed it by accident. Now if I run this, now if I open this model, it's not exactly the same, but it's really similar. I have the ability to specify the watersheds and the census tracts, and then get the data. I want the HUC8 field, and I want this to be the population 9. I do have to specify some here, the way I have it set up. And then I could run it, and it would produce the same result, I think. Let's see if it would work.
It should.
And there's the output. Looks the same. Let's look at the attribute table. Yes, that's the same. Okay, so we did that, and it worked. The reason why I'm showing you that is that there is the ability, and this again may not be, is this in yours? Let's see. So let's open up my model under Model Builder. If I open my model back up, there is the ability to export it to a Python file. Now, is that in your version of Arc Pro? Down there?
Yeah.
It is. Okay, good. Because I know that they didn't add that at the very first version, but now it's there. So if I say export to Python file, I can save this out. I'm going to put this in C, let's put it in C10 for now. Yeah, that's where I put the other one. Yeah, I want to replace it. And now let's go ahead and look at it. So C temp model.
What heading is the export under? Like on the top?
So you have to have your model available on screen.
Right.
And then you have to click on the Model Builder tab.
Yeah, I don't think we have it.
And then you have to export it. Yeah, I know it's something they added later. So next week when I come down, I'll install the latest version of ArcGIS or ArcGIS Pro, and it'll be there. Now, if you've installed it on your computer, you should be able to get it, like your own personal computer. You should be able to get it.
The ability to name whatever OLA feature that is, gives it versatility and the population too. So that's when you're going in and finding out what you want to put in there to come up with an output class which you can find. So all those P's of selection within that model diagram
Yeah.
determine what it is that you want to. And this will make it so flexible, right? You do a lot of different things.
Yeah, see, every time we made a P, it did that get parameter as text. You see that? See all this part? This
Right.
part that's now gray? See how it did 0, 1. They're in slightly different orders than ours, but it did all of them. And then the variable names that it came up with are kind of long, but they still work. And they did the exact same thing where it specified those values.
Well, I mean, when you had that model open, it gave you a list of all the ones you want to select from that qualify to meet the overlay features that was available to select from. It just gave you a list of all the available
Right.
ones when you're doing a model build. And if it qualifies to be an overlay, it shows you that all you got to do is select this one, as long as you was putting the right one in there. Now, when we went to the selection of population, That's the only thing it's gonna come up with is population, feature, right? If you could you change it to be any other type thing to do a sum, like, maybe, houses or something in the area, you could change the population, make it a house, just change the name and.
Yeah. Well, even the model will do that. Like if I chose some other file, like if I had counties and I chose counties, then this list here, like if I chose counties, I know I'm not choosing counties. This list would have things like county name and so on in there.
Right, right.
Yeah, Model Builder is smart enough to know that if I go look at this if I go look at this model, the overlay of these two files is going to always yield the all of the fields from both.
Right.
Now you can confuse Model Builder, like you can make your model so complex that it really has no idea what the field names are going to be, and then it just won't have anything in the dropdown. It is possible to do that, but with a simple one like this, it can figure it out.
So what goes into the dissolve tool? The dissolve does what it do, but it gives you a selection of what the dissolve field is. So the dissolve field itself is just operation. The field that dissolve by is that list that you select on the side over there. It gives you that combination. So, I'm just saying, when you see those parameters on either side, those are telling you to select what you want it to dissolve on, correct? There are parameters from the dissolve field to give you all the parameters to dissolve on.
Yeah.
On the overlay features is the, oh crap, I just had a question. Is the identity feature or is it the input? I think it's
The input. The overlay is the input. The population is the identity.
Okay.
Same as in our script.
Okay.
All right.
If you wouldn't have those P's or parameters on there, it'll be a fixed operation. You can't do but one thing. But if you put that P on the end of it, you can do a lot of this. Right? Be more versatility.
Yeah. Well, if you put the P on it, you're telling Model Builder that you want the user to specify that value. So, for example, if I took the P off, let's close it, and if I go over here and took the P off of the output, first of all, I'm going to rename that output feature class, or I'll just call this output features. There we go. If we took the P off of there and save it, and now we try to run model, now I can't specify where the user puts that.
Right.
But if I put the P back on, save it, I have to, again, just like in the other one, you think of this as your script. So even though I saved it, it doesn't show up here. I have to close it and reopen it for it to actually reread the script.
Okay.
So now it's there. Now I can specify that output feature. And I can yeah, it refreshed. Now it's there. I can also add just individual variables onto here. So I could go like this. See, I could make this not a parameter, and then I could actually change this. I'm going to make this a parameter. I guess I can't change it once it's been added, so I'm going to delete it.
Okay.
And then I'm going to add another one. I'm going to make this a field, and I'm going to say OK, and I'm going to make that a parameter, and make that feed into dissolve fields. Only variable. Oh, I have to go like this then. Percent field percent. So what this is called inline variable substitution. Again, now I'm starting to get my two classes confused because I don't. But you could read about that. So this will take the value from field, and so now when this runs, the value that whatever value is in field will be passed into here. So the point here is if I only wanted to specify a single field, I could do that this way. So dissolve field actually returns lots of fields.
Right.
I mean, I'll let you specify lots of fields. And so now I could type in P0010001 and overlay features, watersheds, see tracks. No, wait, it's Huck 8, isn't it? Yeah, Huck 8. There we go. Oh wait, this says dissolve fields. Something. Oh, I didn't save it. Save. There we go. Model. Now it just says field. I can type in Huck _8 and say watersheds, see tracks, and say P001 sum. Yep, run. And this should work. Yep. So it ran, and let's see if the result looks right. Attribute table. Yep, still looks right. So anyway, that's a way to get it so that you're only specifying a single field rather than a list of fields.
Right.
You could do the same thing with this so that they didn't have to specify the statistic type. But they.
Can you put some kind of error trap in there to keep it from, well, saying field is one thing, but I don't know. You have to specify field, correct?
You mean I have to type it out by hand? I can't choose a drop down.
Right.
Yeah, there used to be a way to do it in ArcMap. There was a properties selection here, and you could actually do the same thing where you said, okay, that it has to come from a different another data source. It has a dependency.
Right.
It doesn't look like it. I don't see a way to set a dependency. But there probably is somewhere. But I don't know how to do it off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a good question. But yeah, what I meant to show you was this ability to export it from a script. So if it's a fairly simple script, you could start off by just doing it in Model Builder and then making any changes that you wanted to make it. Okay. So Model Builder does allow you to do things like loop. You can do iterators, but the interface for doing these logical and the iterators is a little bit, I think, a little bit harder to deal with than scripting. And so I usually write any iterators in scripts personally. But.
Well, you know, when you say iterator, Dr. Rager, you know, if you have a lot of different geodatabases that you want to, a lot of the overlays that you want to put in there, doing the iterator would be good, but then you got to go through this, and you have the 12 months of it and all that. Doing the iterator, it just repeats the task thing you would normally do, just very quickly.
Yep, and we'll do some examples of that. We'll do some examples of that in this course. So, yeah. All right. And there's things that you can do, like for example, Elvis, you asked earlier, what if I actually wanted to print out to the user the answer? And the answer in this case is these values, right? Well, there's no way to do that in Model Builder. You can't pull out these values and report them to the user. or make a, you couldn't make like what if you wanted to make a bar chart showing that information and show that to the user? There's no way to do that in Model Builder. Like that part is the addition that you really get in Model Builder. I mean, sorry, in Python outside of Model Builder. Yes, you can chain tools together, and it's important that we learn how to do that. But what we'll get to is actually, doing some data manipulation and data reporting.
So the only thing that can be recorded on the model builder screen is not, you can't put pie charts on there doing a Python script as part of it.
Well, if you wrote a Python, you can actually go the other way. So, we could build a script tool. In fact, we can do this right now. So if I go, I'm gonna actually create a new model. Imagery, or sorry, no, or analysis is where I'm going. Analysis, model builder. So now I've got my model 1. I can put my find population model on there, and I can actually run it as part of a process. So if you write a Python script that does things like creates charts and other information, you can take your tool and run it in Model Builder and chain it together with other tools. Does that make sense?
So is there a tool to take that output data and make a bar chart?
No.
You know what I'm saying?
No, there's no tools to do that. You can do, there are some charting tools in ArcGIS. Like I could right click on this and say statistics, and I get a chart, right?
Right.
And I can do some things to modify that chart.
Right.
So there are some tools in there, but there isn't a way, like if I wanted to do any more complex analysis besides just a bar chart, no, there's.
Right, so model builder is only to outline the process of what you're doing. It's not to put that on top of it, but only to outline the process of what you're trying to do. And what you just showed us in that window below is where you look at it.
So Model Builder, yeah, is for chaining tools together. Like you can execute a workflow of ArcGIS tools in Model Builder.
Right.
Yep. So, yeah. Python scripting, like, okay, so I could take this data, export it to Excel, and create a chart however I want it. I could make a time series chart, or I could make all sorts of different charts. But if I wanted to automate that process so that it produced a chart exactly of my liking, once a day, then Python script would be a great way to do that. And I could, if I wanted to, I can make my workflow, okay, I'm gonna build the file in Model Builder, export that as a Python script, and then just modify it to put the last part on, and then I have the Python script to do that. Or I might not even want to execute it in our toolbox. I may just want to execute it as a Jupyter notebook. It all depends on how you want to share your data and the result that you want to have.
So if just say for instance you read the program, you want to try to automate it so that you know you're gonna need an Excel chart every time. So can you write into Python to export it as an Excel data file or file that?
Yeah, I mean there is a way to interact with Excel and Python, but I personally think there are better libraries for charting than Excel, but that was just an example.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
One more quick question. So as far
Sure.
as finishing the lab for today, we can build it in Arc Pro and then just export the Python script, technically. Correct.
Yeah. So this is kind of like the question from a couple weeks ago. Like, we could just import NumPy and calculate standard deviation by hand. Yeah, you could. But it. I mean, I want you guys to understand how to hook up variables, and so into your code. And so it would be better to modify it directly. In fact, but you're right that where was the code that I just, anyway, the code that I just had is pretty close to that, right?
Right.
I don't know where I put it. Yeah, right here. No, I put it in ctemp. So yeah, this actually is really close to what you were just saying, Ashley. So this has all of the parameters, all 5 with the dissolve field and the population fields input parameters. But this one actually asks for a fields rather than, I'm sorry, this one actually asks for the, a list of fields rather than the field itself. But it's pretty close. So to answer the question, yes, you certainly could do that. Yep. And
Because
there's,
I think where I'm gonna have the most issue is gonna be not or the as saved or the get parameters as text is gonna be at the bottom with the dissolve management. I think that's where I'm gonna mess up. But so I could do it through model builder just to check myself.
yeah,
Right?
yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yep. Really, you're just replacing
That's
these
right.
2 variables with named variables. Yeah, go ahead.
Is there like a separate data set we could download so that we could try to use those as inputs on our script to see if it works?
Yeah, I was actually thinking of demoing that. I was thinking of going to Maris, and they totally changed
I'm
it.
pretty sure I've got it to where it's going to work, but I'd want to put some different data in just to see if I get an error for the way that I've defined everything.
Yeah, that sounds good.
And also, it depends on the field you're trying to, if it work, which you're trying to sum the population on something, it could be on anything, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, is this statewide data? I'm trying to find where the statewide. They totally changed this website, didn't they?
I hate when they do that.
MDM links, county data, MS811, redistricting. And that does not look like geospatial data. Boundaries admin. Okay, so I could download the counties. So here's my counties. Copy. I'm just going to put that in temp file.
Would it make a difference if they in shape size?
No, it shouldn't. It shouldn't make a difference. That's one of the nice things about a program like ArcGIS Pro or any other software is that it should abstract the differences between different data formats. I'm going to call this state data, and then I'll paste all those in there, and then let's see if we can get census, any census data. Oh, look at this. I was just seeing, okay, yeah, that is what we want. I was wondering if it was lines or polygons. That looks like it's good. Well, oops, I closed up Maris. Download data. Did you all see any census, redistricting, bounties, cadastral, census? There we go. 1990. That's old data. Okay, 2010. I'm going to do tract because I am. Because those are bigger than block groups. And I can already tell this is going to take a long time to run if it actually runs, but copy, C, temp, state data, paste. Okay, now I'm going to go back into ArcGIS Pro. And let's just pretend that this model that I created, this first model here, is the, well, here, because that one I kind of messed up. Let's just do find population is not going to work unless I change. I'm going to change, I'm not going to totally change this because that'll provide all the answers, but, well, no, I would have to change it. Anyway, it's going to fail for me, but it shouldn't fail for you. If I want to select, I can go up here and say state data and choose the counties. The dissolved field is going to be county. I can do county name. Population is going to be the census tracts. Population field is going to be probably the same name, right? There it is. And then I want to save it in here. I'll just call this test 1. I'm going to run it. It's going to fail for me because it's going to say that dataset CO name does not exist or is not supported. That's the dissolved field. So in other words, because my numbers are still messed up, it's getting the wrong data. So what I need to do is I still need to modify my script so that these are the right numbers. But this should run once you have your data set correct. You see what I'm saying?
So you gotta set up your, program code the next time we did before and it'll run. Right.
That's right. In fact, the result that you'll get, I could do this. Find population, no model, edit. There we go. Let's get rid of this guy. Delete. Cut. Make this a parameter. Change the value. Back to nothing. Okay. Save, close. Model 1. By the way, what happens if I didn't choose P00001? Like that's the kind of neat thing about this. I could find out, how many, I could change this so that I find out how many females lived in every single, in this case, county. But I could find out how many whatever housing, how many owner-occupied houses exist within each. So anyway, And then my dissolve field is going to be the county name, and run that. Now this will take a little bit longer to run because it's a lot bigger data set, but it's not going to take forever. There we go. So now I've created that sum from the counties, and it ran just fine. All right. All right. Any other questions?
No, sir.
All right. So no test next week. And I'll see you all down there next week. Sound good?
Yes, sir.
Are you gonna, do you have any obligations after the new stuff that we learned, this week or next week?
No, I can stick around and ask questions.
Okay, cool, because, I might need, assistance with this,
Sure. Yep.
but I'm going to try it first, but I'm just preparing for the worst.
Hey, Dr. Ray, you're going to that geospatial conference, on?
The one in New Orleans, GIS Pro.
Yeah, they got one Thursday and Friday, I think.
No, Elvis is talking about the one here.
Oh, the one here?
Yeah, the one over fall break.
Yeah, you mean the one this week? That's this week, Thursday and Friday.
Yeah.
You're going on Thursday? It's at the campus. I should announce that. No, I'm.
What's that, Dr. Ray?
I do like to go to that, but no, I'm not going this year. But if that is a good thing for you guys that don't know about that. There's a David Holt puts on a great conference every year. It's particularly good for students to attend because a lot of the local firms and the state government folks attend that conference, and so yeah, I meant to announce that last week, so I'm sorry about that. What's that?
I said it's probably a good way to network, show your face around, everybody.
Yes.
You're at the graduate.
Exactly.
And you also, I think if you email Dr. Holt that you want to go, he can get you, your entry fee covered.
Yes. Yeah, Dr. Holt runs the conference, so he's 100% responsible for it, and yeah, he can get your fee waived. So I think it's a great tool. It's something good to attend, and I've mentioned it in the past, but I've totally forgot about this year. Not that I didn't forget about it, but I forgot about announcing it in this class. And my other class.
The conference in New Orleans?
So
That's what you were just saying.
yeah, so there is a conference this week, and I don't know what the students' fees are a lot less. This is a conference I've been to in the past, and it's a good conference. It's definitely geared more toward URISA stands for the urban and regional something. Anyway, URISA is the organization that puts it on. It's going on now. In fact, tomorrow is the last day. But it's a worldwide conference.
Yeah, we won last year. He's got pictures. And I went underneath him.
But I don't know what it's. And then, yeah, that's GIS specific. There actually is another one. It's called the Mississippi Gulf Coast ESRI Conference. That one's coming up here. What's that?
I said there's so many.
Maybe that's what you were thinking? This one's on November 7th through 8th.
Where's it going to be?
That's going to be in New Orleans. So I'm not sure, like, let's see what happens. I know it costs me money to attend, but students, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good way to go get networked out and get your
Edu-
resumes. Get you signed up on it, Dr. Green.
So the deadline for this is coming. Student attendee registration 100. So it does still cost money to attend that one, but that's in New Orleans, and this one will be pretty well attended by people in the area. Yeah, and you may be able to find some support to attend. Usually they don't give you support to attend unless you're going to present something.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure that that's closed at this point for presenting at this one. But anyway, yeah, that's going to be. Now, the annual ESRI conference, this is in San Diego. It's not locally focused. It's everybody from the whole wide world. We do get, as a state, we get 20-something free registrations to this conference. So usually graduate students have priority, but if you ever want to attend, this is in San Diego every year, and usually our university can send 2 or 3 people if you like, because we send.
You gotta be outstanding to get that free ticket, right?
Well, not necessarily. Some years, no, there's not a whole lot of people attending. Like I go almost every year, but I haven't gone every year. But there's not sometimes, and Holt's been, I think, once or twice. But usually we still have 2 or 3 tickets that sometimes go totally unused, and that's just a ticket into the place. So you still have to get yourself there, which is the drawback to this one because it's in San Diego.
When is that one?
This one's always in the summer too. So this year, this is actually last year's. So this year it was on July 8th. It's almost always the week before or the week after Comic-Con, which is in the same conference center. So you see all those advertisements for different shows and movies coming out that are posted all over San Diego. So anyway, that's the thing.
That would be a good reason to visit Veronica because she's over in San Diego.
That's right. This one though, there is a little bit. So it's so big that you can kind of get lost, and you might not stand out as much as going to one of the local ones.
Right.
But yeah, we can definitely get you in to that. Not definitely get you in, but if you tell us early enough and there's not a greater need, which there often isn't, then you can go to that. I don't know when it is next year. ESRI. Yeah. No reason you don't. I'm not presenting any material, so if you guys want to tune me out, then that's fine. Not tune me out, but. So it looks like it's July 13th through 17th next year. New Orleans is a fairly common venue, though, for geography, GIS conferences. So, I'll try to make you aware of them, but there are some other ones. For those of you who have a kind of a ecology perspective, or that's kind of your interest, this is one that's always in the area. So I don't know where it is this year.
I just applied for the travel grant to go to the SEAG's and annual meeting in North Carolina.
Oh yeah, CDAG is local. CDAC has a bit more of an academic focus.
Yeah.
That's the Southeastern Division of American Geographers. That's in North Carolina this year, but it has been, like, it's been in Biloxi before.
It was in New Orleans last year, and I couldn't make it to it, but it was in New Orleans
Yep.
last year.
Okay. Well, I'll post the changes in the requirements and that when that finishes. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording now.